Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to be, as we planned, so we're on schedule. We're going to be talking about the New Deal. Uh, the New Deal. Sorry, my dog is trying to eat sunglasses. Anyway, so the New Deal is I'm going to call it the Great Depression Band Aid, and it was basically the big solution that was supposed to help get America out of the Great Depression. We're not there yet. Okay, so it's basically a set of laws and government agencies created to improve the quality of life for everyday Americans and try to get the standard of living back up, um, get businesses back on track because businesses were affected too. They just, weren't making any money and then they had to fire all their workers, and that's why unemployment was so bad. And then it's also going to try to stabilize the economy. So the reason the New Deal is such a big deal is basically because it's a huge change in the government's role in economics and social welfare, and just the government's role in business and market economy and just the everyday life. Because, yeah. So before FDR even gets into office and before he starts saying that he's going to just fix all this with the New Deal, we have President Herbert Hoover. So we know about our Hoovervilles and all these people, and they're kind of poor Herbert. Poor Herbie. He's really getting the blame for the Great Depression. He's supposed to be fixing it, and he hasn't. And not that it's his fault. It's definitely not his fault, but basically just the stuff he was trying to do was not exactly helping, and it wasn't really pulling Americans out of this slump. Because what Hoover wanted to do is increase taxes and impose tariffs, which sometimes adding adversity and adding to that capitalism, adding competition, sometimes that is extremely helpful, especially in a free market economy, and to keep that competition up and increase prices and all that good stuff. Because this is not an economics class, and I'm not an economics teacher because I'm not very good at it, but just the basics. So anyway, and so what Hoover is really pushing this idea that Americans are resilient and they don't want the government solving their problems for them. The American families, they've got this. American businessmen, they've got this. Businessmen and women, but it's the 30s. But so businessmen. But, you know, the stock market people, they'll all figure it out. They don't need me and, the rest of the government, coming in and fixing that. And this idea is small government. This is conservative small government, uh, and kind of leaving social welfare and some of these issues, leaving that to smaller governments like state governments. And like when Arkansas, I'm trying to remember from my Arkansas history class, just to put this in context with, stuff we know because we're from Arkansas. When in like, I think it was 1927, there was a huge flood on the Arkansas River and the Mississippi River Delta, and it just ruined some crops. And, anyway, so all these people were displaced, all these farmers were displaced, and their crops were ruined, and they needed help. And so the governor at the time, I do not remember who it was. I should, but I don't. And he actually asked Herbert Hoover, and he said, hey, please, please help us, help me take care of these people, whatever. And Hoover said, they decided, no, I'm going to let state state government handle state issues. And so essentially, so that's just kind of the idea is he's going to let states worry about social welfare of their constituents, and he's going to keep in this small government idea, and he's just going to let Americans figure it out for themselves, and he's going to big time laissez-faire, stay out of economics, just let it ride out. So then FDR comes in and he's like, that's not happening. This is so not a good plan. So he comes up with the New Deal. So the reason we're in this, sorry, this is a little unorganized, guys. I'm sorry. But just a quick review before we get into FDR and his New Deal and what his plan was, instead of just bashing on Herbert Hoover. So just a quick review. We know the stock market crashed in 1929. Everybody was investing, and then when the prices started to drop, they panicked, and then everyone stopped investing, and then it tanked, and just no good. So it's crashed. And so then basically the same thing happened with banking. People panicked, and it made things worse. So this is your lesson to not panic. It'll make things worse. That's all you need to take away from U.S. history. No, so stock market crashed. So everyone's like, okay, I need cash now. I need my cash that I've put in the bank. I need it where I can see it because everything's getting so scary and falling apart and da 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 and kind of apocalyptic, whatever. Got to go put my money in my coffee can and save my family from the government falling apart, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, everyone runs to their local bank and, hey, Mr. Banker, I need to make a withdrawal. Oh, yeah, how much money do you need? All my money. I need all of my money that I've ever given you. I need all of it now. And so the reason this is not going to work, or at least is going to be a huge problem that leads to banking failures, is because a bank is not a piggy bank. Piggy bank, you put your money in it, it sits there. If you don't touch it, doesn't go anywhere, it just sits there. But as we know, a bank, if you make a deposit to a bank, they're going to use that money. They use that money to give loans to other customers. And so if you're a bank and you've been getting people's money, you've been making loans and stuff like that, and all your customers at once come to you and are like, hey, we need all our money back. That's not going to work because you don't keep all that money on you. You've lent it out to other people. So it's not accessible. It's not accessible, and you don't have, especially that much money you don't keep it in just all these little boxes of, this is all about Barbara Walters money, and this is all Bob Johnson's money and stuff like that. It doesn't stay like that. It moves around, and that's how banks work, and that's how banks stay in business, and that's how they make a profit. So anyway, so then all these banks fail and they close, and then the panic just gets even worse. So then there's less spending, less consumerism because they can't get the money out of the banks, or they're just trying to keep their money where they can see it and all that stuff. So then there's also less investment because this is definitely not the time that you want to be taking risk with your money. And then there's also busted businesses because they're not making money either if there's less consumerism. And so then if your business is, not working out and you're not making the money you used to be making, you're going to have to cut spending. And where are you going to cut spending? You're going to cut spending in the wages you're giving your employees. And so you're going to fire and or lay off your employees, which is going to cause huge unemployment. So basically this is the issue. This is the crap pile that we've got going on right now. And so then FDR comes in. He's like, no, listen, y'all. Like, I've got this. Herbert doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, I've got the plan. I'm going to fix this. This is obviously paraphrased. He did not say this. What he did say is, I pledge myself to a new deal to the American people. And so he's outright saying, I've got a new deal. I've got a new plan. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to try to help Americans. So when he said that was in his 1933 inauguration speech. And so he's elected as president and he says, I've got a new deal. And so this is how the new deal breaks up. 3 R's: relief, recovery, and reform. So relief is for the unemployed and the poor. So it's work relief and direct relief. So they're giving people money, they're giving people checks and stuff like that. But they're also providing work relief, places where people can find jobs. Then there's also going to be recovery. So he's going to try to recover the economy to get it back to that 1920s time of prosperity when the economy was booming, stock market was going great. It's very Great Gatsby. And he's trying to get it back to where it was. And then he's also going to reform the financial system. If my computer dies, don't be mad at me. I'll do it again later. I don't know. So he's going to reform the financial system and try to get the banks under control and the stock market under control and get everything more fair and more regulated. So the New Deal comes in 2 sections, and the first package is from 1933 to 1934. Don't worry about writing this down. We're going to go through these individually, but this is just a quick rundown of all the different packages. So these are the most urgent and immediate needs. Like, he gets in office, we've got to help the American people. This is what we're doing. So he starts with the Banking Acts of 1933. So that's going to work on the banks. The Civilian Conservation Corps, that's conservation by civilians. So that's going to provide jobs for everyday civilians, and they're going to work to conserve nature and state parks and stuff like that. We've got the Agriculture Adjustment Administration. That's going to work with farmers and get relief to some farmers. National Recovery Administration. That's going to target industry and make sure industries are doing fair work codes, fair codes of competition, and kind of get that all cleaned up. Public Works Administration is exactly what it said. Public Works. It's kind of like the CCC, only instead of working out in the forest and planting trees and building levees, they're going to be building schools and highways and stuff like that. And it's essentially just another way to create jobs. And the Security Exchange Act, that's a little complicated, but it's about essentially the stock market and cleaning up how people invest. And it's basically it's about financial transparency. So if someone's selling you stock, someone's selling you an investment, they're going to tell you, they're going to be completely honest with you. They're not lying to you just to make a buck, kind of like you would see in The Wolf of Wall Street. Not that y'all should be watching that, but if you do, that applies here. So just trying to get more in depth, the Banking Acts of 1933, two acts that he enacted as soon as he got in. The Emergency Banking Act was quite literally an emergency. It's in response to the banking panic. So basically, FDR announces a bank holiday, and all banks are closed. We're shutting down. We're going to review these banks, and we're going to make sure y'all are fit to reopen before we let you reopen. So it's basically just to put a halt on everything and say, okay, we'll look at it, we'll fix it. We being the government. So then few months later, we've got the Banking Act of 1933 in June. And what this does is creates the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And this little plaque, you'll see it at most banks, the FDIC, and it just says each depositor is insured to $250,000. So if you go to the bank and you give them $500,000, and then there's another banking panic, and you go back, you are for sure going to get at least $250,000 of your dollars back, of your money back. And so this creates federal supervision of banks, and just make sure that these banks aren't going to that they're watching their money and they're being safe for their customers, and they're kind of keeping everything in line. And so then I've got this is reform. And so kind of in the bottom of each of these slides, I'm going to show you which of the three R's is kind of in play here. And so the Banking Act is financial system reform. He's trying to clean up and get everything set up to be more prosperous in the future and to avoid Great Depression issues, stock market crashes and stuff like that in the future. My favorite, the CCC. It is so weird to have a favorite New Deal agency, I think, but I do. I love the CCC, and I think it's just because of mainly Petit Jean State Park. I grew up at the foot of Petit Jean State Park, and so up there, the whole state park, the oldest state park in Arkansas, is just it's all created by the CCC. The trails are paved, trails are made by the CCC. All the buildings are made by the CCC, and they have this beautiful log cabin look like these young men are building here. I've had several family members way back when that were a part of the CCC, and so I love it. So what the CCC did was relieve unemployment. It was a fast way to create jobs, mainly for young unmarried men, because, if you're going to be... Yeah, this is very hard physical labor. So you want young men ready to get out there and conserve wildlife and, conserve nature. So anyway, what they're going to be doing, they're going to be planting trees, building levees, building forest roads and trails, or like these young men right here. This is actually from Petit Jean. I think this is them building Mather Lodge, which not the Mather Lodge that's there now, but actually if you go into Mather Lodge and then there's a door like right when you walk in, it has historic Mather Lodge, and you can go in the historic one, and it's not nearly as nice as what they've built in addition to it with all, its huge windows and stuff like that. But it kind of keeps that nostalgia, keeps that essence, keeps that, rugged Americana log cabin essence in. And so Again, I have our 3 R's that this applies to. So this is relief, this is work relief, providing jobs. Another relief agency is the Agricultural Adjustment Administration, the AAA. CCC and AAA by FDR. So now we're kind of seeing why a lot of people call this alphabet soup, because FDR loves his acronyms. So anyway, the Agriculture Adjustment Administration is to help all these farmers. So the reason farmers are not making money, because the farmers kind of experience a lot, they experience a drop in prices. They're not making money. They come on hard times before everybody else does. And that's, partially because of the Dust Bowl, but also because they have so much surplus, so much speculation, so much land. They're making so much crops and exporting them that it's not worth anything anymore. If you have 5 pieces of corn in the entire world and you can buy them, how much do you think each piece of corn is going to cost? A lot. It's going to cost a lot of money if there's only 5 in the world. And that scarcity, that rarity is what makes things cost more money. That's why diamonds are so expensive. At least here, I guess, because there's a lot in Africa. But anyway, but 5 pieces of corn, is going to cost a lot of money. But if corn just grows on trees and if it's just everywhere, then it's not going to cost a lot of money. So the whole goal of the AAA is to get these farmers to kind of cut all the crops they're yielding. They're trying to cut their crop yields. They're saying, hey, you have this much land of farming. I need at least a third of it not gone. Like, burn it, feed it to your cows. We'll buy it from you, but we need it to not enter. We need it to not be exported. We need it to not enter the agricultural industry, because we're trying to get these prices up. And if we get these prices up, then you'll get more money in your pocket. So in order for you to make more money, we're going to give you some direct relief. We're going to give you some direct subsidies to just kind of chill out on growing so much stuff. So then we've got the NRA, not the one you're thinking about, but the National Recovery Administration. And so this is created by the National Industrial Recovery Act. So this is creating a code of fair competition. So this creates minimum wage, maximum hours, and collective bargaining for labor. So this is really, really good for people working in these industries, for fair workers and laborers, to kind of get a fair shake. This also kind of gets all of these businesses in an industry, say the steel industry or another industry, textile industry, kind of gets them all on the same page about what they're going to do and how to create fair competition, and one company's not going to monopolize the rest of the company. Max, I love you, but I need you to be quiet, please. So basically what they're going to do is they're going to have this poster outside their business, and it says, we're a part of the NRA, we do our part, we're cooperating with the federal government, you should too. And so of the 3 R's, this is recovery. So this is recovering we're recovering the economy. It's getting industry back on track to where not everyone's making all the money. Next, we've got the PWA, Public Works Administration, which is essentially what it sounds like. And like the CCC, it's meant to reduce unemployment and increase purchasing power. So it's putting money back in the pockets of Americans. It's giving them jobs. They're working on public buildings, highways. This man, I think it's a bridge. I don't know. BRI something. So he's building something. He's an advertisement for the WPA, and they employed women, they employed artists, they employed all kinds of people, and just tried to get as much jobs as they could out there. And then, last but not least, we have the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, again, not the one that you're thinking about. So this is created by the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. So what this does is regulate the securities industry. And a security is essentially a broad term for stocks, bonds, and investments. And so this creates This is working on the stock market, and then this protects investors. So people who are selling stocks, selling bonds, selling investments, it's getting them to be completely honest with the people they're selling to and to prevent fraud. So it's preventing people like Jordan Belford here from getting super, super rich off of lying to tons of people and the government. And we'll pick up on the rest of this next class. Thank you.